Good day, and welcome to Theology and Prophecy. This is episode 10 of the series God Reveals Through His Servants, and today's title is When is the Time of the End? In the previous episode, I said I was going to read Daniel 11 verse 40 to Daniel 12 verse 1 and ask some goal questions. So let's get into it. I'm going to display the text, and please notice the coloring. I will try and keep it consistent. Red would be north, blue will be south, and green will be the as yet unidentified he. Daniel 11:40. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots and with horsemen and with many ships. And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. Daniel 11:41. He shall enter also into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown, but these shall escape out of his hand, even Edom and Moab and the chief of the children of Ammon. Daniel 11:42. He shall stretch forth his hand also upon the countries, and the land of Egypt shall not escape. Daniel 11:43. But he shall have power over the treasures of gold and of silver, and over all the precious things of Egypt, and the Libyans and the Ethiopians shall be at his steps. Daniel 11:44. But tidings out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. Daniel 11:45. And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him. Daniel 12:1. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. At this point in time, called the time of the end, I pose 8 questions. 1. When is that time? Is it the same time as the time of the end? If so, when is that? If not, when are these 2 times? That time and the time of the end. Question 2. Who is the king of the north? Question 3. Who is the king of the south? Question 4. Who is the unidentified he, especially referring to Daniel 11:40? Question 5. Who is the person addressed by the angel, the you or the your or the thy? Question 6. Who are the people of the addressee? Who is the addressee? It is Daniel, because the angel Gabriel is addressing Daniel, and he mentions people or your people or thy people. So that's what we want to know. Who are the people of Daniel? Question 7. And who is Michael? And then lastly, question 8. What is the book containing the names of those who will be saved? Let's tackle the easy answers first. Question 4. Who is the unidentified he? Especially referring to verse 40 of chapter 11. Well, for the answer, we have to go back to the verses immediately prior to verse 40 and establish who is being spoken of. We find the answer in verse 37. Let's read as of verse 36. Daniel 11:36. And the king shall do according to his will, and he shall exalt himself and magnify himself above every god, and shall speak marvelous things against the God of gods, and shall prosper till the indignation be accomplished. For that is determined shall be done. Daniel 11:37. Neither shall he, and I've marked it green, regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of woman, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all. Now, just for background, up to verse 35, the angel spoke about Rome and more specifically about the papacy, and we will be able to prove that later. But in these verses, between verses 30 and verses 36, it is being spoken interchangeably about France and about Rome. At a certain stage, they had a treaty. The Bible speaks of them sitting at the same table but being against each other. If you read those verses, and we will dive deeper into that, but it alternates between the two, because two major things are mentioned, and I'm going to use the one to prove the he of verse 40. The other major thing that is mentioned is that this character will take away the daily, and secondly, it will introduce the abomination spoken of Daniel, or the abomination of desolation that we read in these verses. So when it refers to the he, it jumps between the two. For at a time they work together, at a time they are fighting each other, and at a certain time they are sitting at the same table, but they are working against each other. It's almost as if it was a time where they were trying to outwit and outsmart each other, pretending to be something they were not. But once we get to verse 37, that is where it starts to make sense. So whoever was spoken of before verse 37 is basically not relevant at this stage, because the person being introduced has a very easily distinguishable trait, and that is he regards no God, meaning, unlike the papacy and all the kingdoms and empires that came before them affecting the people of God, before this point, all of them regarded their gods and held them in high esteem. This king or this monarch or this power was an atheist, but more importantly, his whole kingdom, including the subjects, were atheistic and recognized no God. And you would realize now that we are going to answer two questions in one, because France in 1798 did in fact reject God and all deities, and that happened in 1798. So we are answering our question on time as well. When is the time of the end? Well, we have one date mentioned here, 1798. Furthermore, a French general, Berthier, went so far as to walk into the residence of the Pope and arrest him and send him to exile. It marked the end of the papal dominance and the sway they held over the kings of all nations. If you want to dig deeper into this piece of history to confirm my facts, you are welcome to research it. It is a well-known historical fact, and you can see the Encyclopedia Britannica, if you want to, under Vatican's official history. Now that takes care of question 4, the identity of the unidentified he. It was France, and more specifically King Louis XVI, who died in 1793 and was followed by a group called the Reign of Terror, 93 to 94, and then a group of 5 called the Directory, and finally Napoleon stood up 1799. That is considered the beginning of the time of the end. So let's jump to question 1 on times. When is that time? And is it the same as the time of the end? Well, history answers the first, and the text we just read answered the second part of the question. No, that time and the time of the end is not the same, because there's a series of events prophesied between that time, which we now know is 1798, which is the beginning of the time of the end, and the standing up of Michael, which is the end of the time of the end, which history proves to us has not all taken place yet. A series of wars between France and Turkey and France and Egypt is confirmed by history to have taken place under the reign of Napoleon, which answers our question. The time of the end is a period, and 1798 marks the start of that period, meaning that we are still in that period, because no entity calling itself Michael has yet stood up for the people of Daniel to save them. Although all of modern-day Israel is daily involved in battles and persecutions and hatred, even by people from South Africa, which tells me that the end of the time of the end is soon approaching. Please take note of the clues we just heard from history. Both the kings of the north and south was just mentioned, but also take note that the unidentified he might not be, and most probably is not, the entity that will plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. We will have to look at the grammar and possibly even go back to the original Hebrew text to determine the identity of the he in verses 43 to 45. For it seems that the he or his does not concurrently refer to the same object and or subjects in these sentences. We will have to keep our wits about us to figure out who is referred to in these verses, because it makes a world of difference. In the next episode, we will tackle more of these questions and start narrowing down our fields of study to see if we can find modern-day events currently happening around us, which possibly could be present truth or prophecy being fulfilled in our time. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to spending more quality time with you in the next episode. I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ, and may God bless you.